General characteristics of solid state. The state of any matter depends on two factors, whether it will be solid, liquid, or gas. So these two factors are intermolecular forces, means how the molecules are being attracted to each other, towards each other, and then the thermal energy. Thermal energy, that suppose if we heat something, yeah, then kinetic energy will increase, and due to that kinetic energy, thermal energy can lead to conversion from solid state to liquid phase to gaseous phase. So these two factors are responsible at a particular temperature. What is the sum of intermolecular forces and the thermal energy? So as I said, intermolecular forces tend to keep the molecules closer, whereas thermal energy tries to move them apart from one another. At sufficiently low temperature, the thermal energy is low and intermolecular forces bring them so close that they cling to one another and occupy fixed positions. When they occupy fixed positions, then we call it a solid. In such cases, substances exist in state solid. So if you are asked what factor is responsible which converts liquid state to solid state, when we decrease the temperature, it is decrease in thermal energy. Okay? Intermolecular forces is still same, but because thermal energy decreased, that's why they came closer. The effective intermolecular forces increased. But even in this case, you know that in solid state, the atoms or molecules can oscillate or vibrate about their mean positions. So they cannot move, but they still can vibrate. So if there's a molecule or atom in a solid, it can vibrate about its mean position. It can vibrate in any direction, but the mean position will remain same. Other question for you, and you need to give me the answer in chat box. A substance exists as solid only when. Easy one. Yes, Mansha, correct. Kushi, Avnish, just to check whether you were listening to me or not. Tanishka, correct. So a substance exists as solid only when intermolecular forces are stronger than thermal energy. When thermal energy becomes less than intermolecular force. That will be most likely situation there is liquid state. Okay, liquid to gaseous state. That is just the critical threshold. Okay? This is critical threshold. So this is basically phase conversion stage. Next question. The constituent particles of a solid have. Yes, more than enough time you have taken. Tell me the answer. Yes, Mansha, correct. Aditya Vijayan, correct. Kushi Shrivastava, think again. Avnish, Mansha, Kushi Shrivastava, now correct. Yes, Avnish, C. That is the correct answer. They can have only vibratory motion. They can just oscillate about their mean positions, nothing else. No translatory motion, no rotatory motion, nothing. Translatory motion is, suppose a ball is moving, which you must have done in physics, and this ball is at rest. This one is moving. When it strikes the second one, B starts moving after that. So this is translatory motion in the same line, in the line of motion, but translatory motion, maybe in few cases in just a straight line. Rotatory, obviously. Rotation. Now, classification of solids. There are various classifications, but two are important: crystalline and amorphous. This classification is specifically based on how the molecules are ordered. There was a disconnection. I hope I am audible. So categorization, crystalline and amorphous, this is on the basis of how the molecules are arranged. So if you are asked, what is the basis of classification? Basis of this classification is how the molecules or any particles, okay, atoms, etc., are arranged. What is the order? How they are ordered. So this is the basis of classification if you are asked. On the basis of nature of order present in the arrangement of their constituent particles. Crystalline solids, as you can see, they have long range order. What do I mean by that? That they have some regular pattern. Regular pattern means a repeating pattern. In all directions in 3D. Which is actually long range order. It is not short range, means it is not just for some part, it is for the entire part. Amorphous will not have long range order. They might have short range order, remember. Okay? So no long range order. Might have short range order. Those are called amorphous. So it is exactly how the molecules, atoms, ions, particles are arranged. One important factor in case of crystalline, which is normally referred to and you need to remember, is that they are arranged in layers. This is the distinguishing feature. Apart from when we say long range order, short range order, this is very important distinguishing feature, that they are arranged in layers, crystalline solids, layers of the planes of molecules. And that's why there will be one important property shown by crystalline solids, not by amorphous solids. Okay, we will be talking about. So the differences, crystalline solids and amorphous solids, and the property which I was referring to, shape, definite characteristic geometrical shape. Means we are talking about not external shape, we are talking about internal shape. So if you see here, There is some repeating pattern. Everywhere the shape is same. But in amorphous, there is no regular shape, irregular shapes. Okay? Irregular shape. Melting point. Melt at sharp and characteristic temperature. Characteristic temperature at a particular temperature for that particular substance. First of all, that will be a particular temperature, and at that temperature, it will melt. There will not be any range. However, for amorphous, gradually softens over a range of temperature. For example, if you start heating plastic, so plastic first will get softened. After that, it will get start melting. But if you start heating a metal, for example, iron, when it melts, the entire piece will melt at a particular temperature, not at a range. It will not become soft first. Okay? So you can never have iron as soft when you are heating it. So it doesn't become soft. It will be either solid or liquid. Then cleavage property. This is very important property. When cut with a sharp edge tool, they split into two pieces and the newly generated surfaces are plain and smooth. And this property is actually responsible for melting point and the surfaces being smooth for both. And underlying reason for this property is this one. Because they are arranged in layers, when an atom gets detached from layer, all these atoms of the, suppose this one I am talking about, all these atoms are in one layer, they will require exactly same energy to get detached from the lower layer. Similarly, this layer will require, all the atoms will require exactly same energy to get detached from the lower layer because these are arranged in layers. So one layer gets attached from the other one. And all layers need approximately same energy to get detached because the intermolecular forces between the layers are same because they are symmetrically arranged. So layers are arranged symmetrically and they need the same, all the molecules in one layer need the same energy to get it attached. So that's why their melting point is sharp. The moment that energy is provided, all the molecules get detached from one layer to another layer. However, in amorphous case, the arrangement is very different. Somewhere they are close to some and apart from other, and in few cases all are close. So when we start heating an amorphous solid, the molecules which are not so close, they need very less amount of energy to get detached. So they start getting detached at lower energy. But the molecules which are attached closely, they are still in solid phase. So that's why they start melting. So that's why we get soft material. For example, in case of plastic, because some part of it has melt, but the other part is still solid. So there is no sharp melting point in case of amorphous solids because the layers are missing. There are no layers. And different molecules need different energies to get detached from other molecules. Same is responsible here also, cleavage property. The layers again. Why? Because We have the layers. When we cut, actually it is cut from the layer, any layer. When we cut it, the edge is much wider than an atom. So edge is like this actually. So it starts separating the layer because layers get detached from one another. That's why the surfaces are smooth. So both cleavage property and sharp melting point are due to the arrangement in layers, or you say symmetrical arrangement. But keyword layer is important. Heat of fusion, it is actually related to melting point. Yeah. When melting point is sharp, obviously you need a definite amount of heat because the crystalline materials will need a particular amount of heat to attain a particular temperature. So that's why they have a definite and characteristic heat of fusion. They do not have definite heat of fusion. Next, very important property, anisotropy. And this one is where many students remain confused initially. Okay? Anisotropy, first understand what is anisotropy. The anisotropy is actually opposite of isotropy. And isotropy is from the word iso. So try to understand what I am saying. Suppose these are the atoms arranged in a solid metal, suppose. Now, one property is refractive index. Refractive index can be of light rays, refractive index can be of other rays also, X-rays, okay, for example, which can somehow penetrate the solids. Okay. Now, suppose we have we are talking about refractive index, and there are various rays from various sides. So, one ray, another ray from left side. Now, if I have ray like this, and I have another ray like this, what do you think? The ray 1, ray 2, and ray 3, do they have same hindrance? They do not have the same hindrance. Actually, the R1 does not have any hindrance. And R3 has maximum hindrance. It means in crystalline solids, the properties are not same from all directions. In crystalline solids, the properties are not same from all the directions. If properties are same, then we call it isotropic. Iso means same. Because here properties are not same, That's why this property is known as anisotropic. Why anisotropic? Because the properties are not same in all directions. Now you can say whether amorphous solids are isotropic or anisotropic. The answer is amorphous solids are isotropic. Why they are isotropic? Again, the reason is the anisotropic solids have disordered structure. So what happens in this case? In this case, if rays are passing in different directions, the hindrance, this is just one section, okay? Actually, there are trillions of molecules or atoms. The hindrance gets averaged out. Somewhere the molecules are very close, somewhere they are not so close, far apart, but from one end to another end, the properties get averaged out. It is not like crystalline solids that in one direction there will be no hindrance and in from other direction there will be maximum hindrance. So because properties get averaged out, the amorphous solids are isotropic. And this is actually very confusing initially for students because students get confused symmetry with isotropy. Symmetry and isotropy is not same thing. Crystalline solids are symmetrical because they are arranged in a regular structure. So one part is symmetrical to the other part, but it does not mean they are isotropic. Isotropy is entirely different phenomenon as compared to symmetry. So don't get confused. Both are not same. Symmetry is about how they look and feel. Okay? Isotropy is about their properties, whether they are same from all the directions or not. Okay. So crystalline solids are anisotropic in nature because their properties are not same from all directions. Amorphous solids are isotropic because properties are same. Nature is, these are called true solids. Amorphous solids are called pseudo solids. The reason is there are some parts where the molecules can be so apart that if the other close parts are not there, they will actually behave as liquids. So some molecules are so loosely in the lattice, so loosely bound that if solid part is missing, they may not exist as solid. So that's why they are called pseudo solids or supercooled liquids. So this is the name given, term given, supercooled liquid. So anyway, if you cool any liquid at certain temperature, it will become solid. But remember, the term is associated with amorphous solid only. Now, order range, they have long range order, means same repeating pattern for a very long distance. Amorphous solids, only short range order can be possible, no long range order. Now, polycrystalline is somewhere in between crystalline and amorphous. Means they will have some pattern, and these patterns, small patterns, will be crystalline in nature. Not much will be asked, just for reference, because you should know at least the term polycrystalline. So crystalline, amorphous, in between we have polycrystalline, nothing more than that. Now question, why do solids have a definite volume? Solids have a definite volume because there are very high intermolecular forces, due to which particles cannot get detached from one another. Due to this rigidity, we have definite volume. Almost same definition is for liquids also. In liquids case also, you will say very high intermolecular forces, not very high. High intermolecular forces due to which particles cannot get detached from one another. They can flow over one another, but cannot get detached from one another. So that's why they have the definite volume. Don't write the rigidity word when you are asked the same question about liquids. Just exclude the rigidity word. Next question. Classify the following as amorphous or crystalline solids. Now you will remember some rules. The rules will be all metals are crystalline. Okay? All chemical salts are crystalline, except the mercury. Okay. So crystalline, if you say all metals are crystalline, obviously we are not talking about in their liquid state. So we are talking about solid. So don't get confused with liquids. The topic is about solids, not liquids. All chemical salts are crystalline. Okay. Now you can find the answer very easily. If you remember, metals and salts are crystalline. Polyurethane, neither metal nor chemical salt, amorphous. Naphthalene, typical arrangement. Okay. So typical arrangement, so chemical molecules which have typical arrangements, those will also be crystalline. Okay. So that's why crystalline. Benzoic acid, again crystalline. Okay. Chemical specific structure. So not only salt, whatever chemical structure is definite structure, those will be crystalline. Teflon. Teflon is a polymer. The polymers are amorphous, plastic polymers. All. Potassium nitrate, again chemical compound, crystalline. Cellophane, a type of sellotape, for example, plastic, etc., amorphous. Polyvinyl chloride, again polymer, amorphous. Fiber glass, again fiber glass, these are amorphous. Remember, quartz is crystalline. Quartz and glass are both same formula, but quartz is crystalline, glass is amorphous. Copper, metal, crystalline. Okay, so these simple rules will give you the answer. Okay, I'll show you the question. Basically, all chemical. Both are different form of same thing, glass and amorphous. Why is glass considered a supercooled liquid? Or the question is sometimes pseudo solid. The answer is same. It is because in a long period of time, say 15 to 20 years, what happens that when we initially have the glass, for example, window panes, etc. So initially its thickness. So this is cross-sectional view I am talking about. Okay. The top and bottom thicknesses are same. But with time, in many years, what happens that we observe that bottom becomes thicker as compared to the top, and top becomes narrower. It means the glass has the property of fluidity. It is a sort of fluid. However, the process is very slow. But it means because the bottom is thicker and top is narrower, it means it has property of fluid. So that's why it is called supercooled liquid, because it flows, although very slowly, but it flows. Next question, and I want answer in the chat window from everyone. So be active. Refractive index of a solid is observed to have the same value along all directions. Comment on the nature of this solid. Would it show cleavage property? So first tell me whether it will be isotropic or anisotropic, and then tell me whether it will show cleavage property or not. So first part is asking about whether it is isotropic or anisotropic and whether it will show cleavage property or not. Both answers in one line. Both answers in one line. I need to check both at the same time. So first answer isotropic or anisotropic. Second answer yes or no. Comma, yes or no. Yes, Avnish, correct. Sushi Shrivastava, second part not correct. That's why I say. Tathagat, correct. Ritika, correct. Tanishka, no. First part not correct. Tushar, second part not correct. Isa, this is just one answer. I need both. Aditya, correct. Karthik, no. Aditya, first part not correct. Isa, your answer not correct. Karthik, Dhanai, correct. Mansha, second part not correct. Artisha, correct. Okay, Isa, yes, second part now correct, but first part was not correct. Okay. So that's why I asked this question because students are confused. And that's why, more than, I would say 30% answers were wrong. Refractive index is same. If it is same, it means it is amorphous. Because in crystalline solids, there are layers, there are gaps in between, the refractive index will not be same. If it is amorphous, okay, comment on the nature of this solid, whether it is isotropic or anisotropic. So if the value is same, it means it is isotropic, but it is amorphous. If it is amorphous, it is not in layers, so it will not show cleavage property. Cleavage property means the surfaces are smooth and shiny when these substances are cut to sharp knife or object. So amorphous solids, for example, just consider PVC pipe. If you cut it, do you get very sharp edges? No. So amorphous will not show cleavage property. Yeah. And this is something I have explained. Next question. Define the term amorphous. Give a few examples of amorphous solid. So we already know the definition. Definition is actually the properties we talked about. That the order, the particles are arranged in such a way that they do not have long range order. Remember, I told you that the definition is on the basis of the molecules being arranged. Okay, in this fashion, what fashion they are arranged in. Only short range order is possible. So that is the definition because the definition is just based on how they are ordered. Give a few examples. The examples will be plastics, Teflon, whatever you want to mention, and is cellophane, cotton, wood. All these are amorphous solid. Cotton, obviously, when it is solid, okay, compressed. Next, what makes a glass different from a solid such as quartz? The difference is glass is amorphous solid. Quartz is same thing but in crystalline form. Next part, obviously, I have not told you, but I'm just going to answer that. Yes, Karthik. Yes, Avnish, your examples are very good. Glass, rubber, yes, those are also amorphous solids. Rubber, yes, good example. Next part is under what conditions could quartz be converted into glass? Quartz has long range order. Okay? Long range order. However, glass is amorphous. There is no long range order. And you have to convert quartz to glass. So what we do, we heat it. So that it melts. We heat quartz so that it is almost to melting, even if it is not completely melt. Okay, it starts melting. And then second is what will happen if we heat it? The atoms or molecules will get disordered. So heating will lead to disorderedness. Heating will lead to disorderedness. And this is something, the points you will be writing. Okay? You will say we need to convert quartz to glass. Quartz has long range order, glass has short range order. This is amorphous solid. So first we heat the quartz so that its molecules get disordered. Then we cool it rapidly. Cooling it rapidly does not give it any time to get rearranged. So when we cool it rapidly, molecules get stabilized in disordered structure when we cool it rapidly and convert to glass. Remember, both are same thing, glass and quartz. The only difference is quartz is ordered, glass is disordered. Quartz is crystalline, glass is amorphous. So this is how you convert quartz to glass. Next question. Amorphous substances show. Tell me the answer. Avnish, Isa, correct. Bhagat, write a small d, okay? If you are telling me capital A, capital B, I am considering the first one, okay? So just tell me. Yeah. So the answer is D. Yes, Aditya, Mansha, Ritika, Tathagat. Correct, okay? Because amorphous solids show short range order and have no sharp melting point. They have a range, temperature range instead of, not a point. So B and D are correct. Next question. Which of the following is not a characteristic of crystalline solids? Tathagat, Avnish, Kritika, Aditya, Kushi, Srivastava. Correct. Good. Mansha, try again. Vijayan, correct. Anishka, try again. Karthik, Thanai, try again. Mansha, now correct. So I told you that many of you might get confused initially that crystalline solids do not show isotropic nature. Crystalline solids are actually anisotropic. So C is not the characteristic shown by crystalline solids. Crystalline solids are symmetrical. They have layers, but not isotropic. Next question. Which among the following will show anisotropy? Aditya, correct. Karthik Tyagi, correct. Tanika, Mansha, Kritika, correct. You should not be taking that much time, right? It's easy question. Avnish, Kushi, Shrivastava, yes. Tathagat, yes. Anisotropy is the property of crystalline solids. I told you just in the previous question. Crystalline solids have symmetrical structure, they have layers, and they are anisotropic. So the one which is crystalline will be the answer. So barium chloride is chemical salt with definite structure. It is crystalline, it will show anisotropy. Next question. A pseudo solid is. Okay, Avnish got it. Okay, all other answers are wrong, right? And obviously, because I didn't tell you, might be the reason. Yes, glass is pseudo solid along with pitch is also pseudo solid. Pitch is what, if you have studied about it, something from which the coal tar, okay, is obtained. That is the pitch. So D is the correct answer. Most crystals show good cleavage because their atoms, ions, or molecules are. Yes, tell me the answer. I have told you quite a few times. Avnish and Khushi Shrivastava correct. Aditya, think again. Mansha, think again. Tanishka, think again. Tathagat correct. Karthik, and I think again. Aditya, Kaushik again, think again. Mansha Sharma, think again. Ritika, Tanishka, Ritika correct. Tanishka now correct. Karthik Tyagi now correct. Aditya now correct. Vijayant correct. Mansha correct. Yes. Yeah. So I have told you that they are arranged in layers basically. So these are the planes. They show cleavage property. I told you they are in layers. That's why layers get detached from the other layer. The surface is smooth. So layer, another word here is plane. Next, which of the following is not a crystalline solid? Okay, this one is easy, so I'm skipping this. Okay. Now, next part. So this classification, what we discussed, was on the basis of orderedness, how they are ordered. Okay. Now, the other one, crystalline solids can be classified on the basis of nature of intermolecular forces also. How the intermolecular forces are working amongst the atoms or molecules. For example, molecular crystalline solids. So here we are talking about only crystalline solids, okay? On the basis of intermolecular forces. Molecular, ionic, metallic, and covalent solids. So first try to memorize there are four types of crystalline solids. And quite frequently there are questions that you are given few compounds and you are asked, arrange them in this order or out which ones out of these are molecular solids which are ionic, metallic, covalent. So you need to know four types. Now, molecular solids are further divided in three: non-polar molecular solids, polar molecular solids, and hydrogen bonded molecular solids. Hydrogen bonded molecular solids are actually a type of polar molecular solids. Okay, so this is just a special case. Effectively, there are non-polar and polar. How many types of crystalline solids? Molecular solids, molecular crystalline solids, ionic crystalline solids, metallic crystalline solids, and covalent crystalline solids. In molecular solids, intermolecular forces of attraction and repulsion among interacting particles keep them intact. So this is something we have already talked about. Intermolecular forces greater than the effect of thermal energy. The molecules are the constant particles of molecular solid. As the name is there, molecules are the constant particles and there are intermolecular forces. Simple. The sum of, this is something I have already told you, the sum of attractive and repulsive intermolecular forces is known as van der Waals forces. We have already talked about it in chemical bonding class 11. Types of van der Waals forces: London forces or dispersion forces, dipole-dipole forces, hydrogen bond, and dipole-induced dipole forces. That is the last topic today. We will be talking about three types of van der Waals forces, and most of these you have studied in 11th also. London forces or dispersion forces, dipole-dipole forces, hydrogen bond, you already know, dipole-induced dipole forces. London forces are the weakest forces, remember. London forces are exhibited by non-polar molecules. That's why they are weakest. Because of temporary correlated movements of the electrons in interacting molecules. So remember the reason. Movements of electrons, which is temporary in interacting molecules. When I say movement of electrons, it is not movement, it is not transfer. So don't get confused. Movement of electron means the movement of electron cloud, means electron cloud gets disturbed. Simple terms. The magnitude depends on the polarizability of the particles, interacting particles. Suppose this is the case. There are two atoms in a compound. Both are non-polar. They do not have any polarity. Then due to some disturbance, etc., cause polarity. How? The first right. Cause shifting of electron cloud in one direction. When electron cloud moves in one direction, say in this case towards right, the left part attains partial positive charge and the right part attains partial negative charge, because on right part there the electron density is higher. On left part the protons are there, nucleus. So this becomes a dipole. When it becomes a dipole, this electron pulls the nucleus towards itself and repels the electron cloud away from it. So it means it induces the polarity in the second atom as well, atom B. And remember, they are not permanent dipoles, none of these. A, due to disturbance in electron cloud, got polarity, temporary polarity, and induced polarity in the neighboring atom. Due to differences in polarities, there will be some interaction. Now, because both are dipoles, they will attract one another. So the force of attraction will be there. The movement of electron cloud can be in any direction, as I have already told you. It can be left, right, it can be in any direction. But that temporary dipole will induce polarity in other atoms. And this will lead to dipole-dipole interaction, which is actually not dipole-dipole interaction. We will be talking about dipole-dipole interaction where there are permanent dipoles. In temporary case, it is not called dipole-dipole interaction or even not induced dipole. So London force is a temporary phenomenon in which, due to movement of electron cloud, temporary polarity is developed and polarity is developed in the induced in the neighboring atom as well, due to which there is some interaction between the or amongst the atoms, which is called London force. Yes, Aditya, they are momentary dipoles. Now, dipole-dipole forces. The name here is dipole because these are permanent dipoles. For example, HCl molecule. So if we have one HCl molecule and the other HCl molecule, then the negative end of the dipole, they are permanent dipoles, will attract the positive end of the other dipole. This interaction is stronger than London forces, but is weaker than ion-ion interaction anyway, because these are partial charges. Electron transfer has not taken place. So these charges are not even unit charge. These are fractional charges. So unit charge will be when one electron is transferred, 1 unit charge. Two electrons transferred, 2 unit charge. This is fraction, that's why partial charges. So less than ion-ion interaction. The force of attraction will be less than the ion-ion interaction. Now a special case of dipole-dipole moment, hydrogen bonding. In this case, we have HCl. So this is pure dipole-dipole moment, nothing else. But in case of HF, the force of attraction is very high due to very high difference in electronegativities. So when hydrogen is close to oxygen, nitrogen, or fluorine, then it forms hydrogen bond. So this is again a dipole-dipole force. For example, here in this case, this HF is a dipole, this HF is a dipole. So this is a dipole-dipole force, but because this is something substantially more than normal dipole-dipole force where hydrogen bond is formed, so this is mentioned separately as hydrogen. Energy of hydrogen bond varies between 10 to 100 kilojoule per. This is quite a significant amount of energy in determining the structure and properties of many compounds. The properties are different in few cases. For example, H2O has high boiling point 100 degrees Celsius just due to hydrogen bonding. Next, dipole induced dipole force. Dipole induced dipole force. So it operates between the polar molecule, which is a permanent dipole, and the other one is not a polar molecule. That's why dipole induced dipole force. One permanent dipole induces dipole in other one. So in this case, one molecule is a permanent dipole. For example, HCl. And the other one is non-polar molecule. It is not polar. It does not have any polarity. But when they come closer, then this negative end repels the electron of the other atom and attracts the nucleus towards itself, due to which the other one gets positive, partial positive charge on left hand and negative charge on the right. So a permanent dipole induces the polarity in a non-polar molecule. This is known as dipole-induced dipole. High polarizability increases the strength of the attractive interactions. So if it is highly polarizable, means electron cloud can get shifted easily. High polarizability means the electron cloud can get shifted easily. Increases the strength of the attractive interaction. So if electron cloud is shifted easily, this becomes the dipole easily. Okay. If it has high polarizability, then it is converted to dipole easily. That's why strength of attractive interactions is high.